Clean up properly before you leave. Inept Adam, a haughty and egotistical young worker from a client business, was in front of me. I am the president of my own firm, and he insulted me by calling me incompetent. I had never experienced such obvious disdain in my years of employment. I have my own method of managing things, though, if that's how he wants to play. The $300 million contract is off. All right. What? Adam remained sneering and showed no worry when he heard the words $300 million, stating, "You're just a low-level employee." But for the time being, his hotness will end. I'll see to it that his arrogant attitude is totally reversed. He'll learn that the most horrifying thing he could have done was to enrage me. It will be too late by the time remorse sets in. My name is Richard Sullivan, 55 years old. I'm the president of Y Corporation, a major food manufacturing company. I first got interested in food production during high school while working part-time at the company I now lead. After graduating, I joined Y Corporation full-time. I devoted myself to my job, gaining both operational knowledge and management skills along the way. By the time I turned 25, I became the youngest department manager in Y Corporation's history. I continued to work relentlessly, earning recognition from the higher-ups, and 25 years after joining the company, I became its president. I took on the role in my mid-40s, but the path forward was far from smooth. Some employees, jealous of my promotion, spread false rumors and talked behind my back. While many might have given up in such a situation, my upbringing gave me the resilience to overcome it. I lost my parents in an accident when I was 3 and was raised by relatives. At that time, I endured mockery and bullying for not having parents but dismissed it as trivial and ignored it. Those experiences strengthened my resolve and shaped the person I am today, a president leading a major corporation. A meeting with O Corporation is scheduled for next week, isn't it? Yes, the meeting is set for 10 o'clock a.m. 1 week from now, and 2 representatives from O Corporation are expected to attend. 2 representatives? Will the president, Miss Grant, not be joining them? We've been informed that Miss Grant is on an overseas business trip and won't be able to attend this time. Spending so much time preparing for this, only to have her skip it for an overseas trip. This deal is far more critical than any we've had before, and without her, it raises some concerns. O Corporation is a rapidly growing food manufacturer that has seen remarkable success over the last 3 years. Its president, Olivia Grant, is a skilled and highly regarded female executive in the industry. For us, collaborating with O Corporation is vital for future growth and expansion. However, given their smaller size, O Corporation has far more to lose if the deal fails. That's why I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about only 2 representatives attending such an important meeting. Before the meeting, I plan to visit O Corporation. What does my schedule look like? The earliest available slot would be the day after tomorrow. However, Miss Grant will still be away. Are you sure you'd like to proceed? I'm familiar with Miss Grant, and we can meet any time. What's more pressing is meeting their representatives to ensure they can handle such a crucial deal without her. Understood. I'll inform them you'll be visiting the day after tomorrow. After arranging the appointment, I set off for O Corporation 2 days later with my secretary, Julia. This is my first visit here, but it's even bigger than I imagined. Since Miss Grant took charge, the company has been growing at an incredible pace. Their growth was evident. The interior was clean, equipped with state-of-the-art facilities, and the employees radiated enthusiasm. Just as I was thinking that we couldn't afford to fall behind, a man's angry shout echoed from the back of the building. Julia also seemed concerned, but the employees of O Corporation didn't even flinch, as if they were used to it. The shouting continued unabated. When I started heading toward the source of the commotion, Julia looked worried and said, "We should stay out of this." However, having heard it, I couldn't just walk away. If this turned out to be a serious issue, leaving it unresolved now could lead to major problems later. This wasn't just a hunch. It was a gut feeling honed by years of experience as a president. I turned to Julia and said, "Wait here for me," before heading toward the source of the noise alone. As I got closer, the man's shouting grew louder. I could also hear the sound of something being violently broken. Finally, I reached a room. "It's coming from here." The sign on the door read "Storage Room." The shouting was undoubtedly coming from inside. I placed my hand on the doorknob and slowly opened the door. Inside, I saw a young man in a suit standing alone. "What are you doing here?" The moment he heard my voice, he turned sharply and glared at me with piercing eyes. "Ha! Who the hell are you? You got no business barging in here." It was clear that the shouting everyone in the hall had heard was coming from him. "Hey, can you hear me?" I said, "Get the hell out." "I can't do that." Your voice carried all the way to the lobby. "Huh. Who do you think you are?" Clearly displeased by my response, the man stormed over and grabbed me by the collar. "You're not even part of this company, are you?" "I don't care who you are, old man, but don't stick your nose in my business. If you keep running your mouth, I'll deal with you right here and now." Just then, his phone rang from his chest pocket. Clicking his tongue in irritation, he let go of my collar and stormed out of the storage room. As he left, I caught a glimpse of his name tag, and it read Adam. I looked around the room and saw items scattered across the floor, likely knocked off the shelves in a fit of rage. So that was the source of the loud noises earlier. Still, I looked around thinking that he had certainly caused quite a mess. Judging by the scene, Adam must have been venting his frustrations on the objects in the room. I stepped out of the storage room and informed a nearby employee. "The room's a mess. Please let the person in charge know to take care of it." Then I returned to Julia, who was waiting for me. "Mr. Sullivan, are you all right?" "I'm fine." "That's good to hear. I've just been informed that the operations manager, Matthew, will be here shortly." "I see. Today I was scheduled to be shown around by Matthew in place of Miss Grant." "Thank you for waiting," Matthew said as he hurried over. "Thank you for taking the time to meet with me." With Matthew's thorough guidance, I could see the difference between O Corporation and my company. He explained everything from their daily operations and employee training methods to their state-of-the-art facilities, as expected of a company at the forefront of the industry. "I learned a lot today and found many practices we could adopt for our own company," I said sincerely, and Matthew beamed with pride at my words. However, there was one question I couldn't ignore about the upcoming deal. "Miss Grant won't be attending, and I've been told it will be handled by just 2 representatives. Are you confident everything will go smoothly without her? This deal is crucial for both of our companies." Matthew looked genuinely surprised. "Is that so?" he said, as if hearing this for the first time. He explained that the operations department hadn't been involved in this particular deal and that he didn't know much about it. "One more thing. Could you tell me about an employee named Adam?" "Of course. Adam is one of our brightest talents and a key figure in the future of O Corporation," Matthew answered enthusiastically. I couldn't believe my ears. That employee, Adam, that arrogant and violent man, is supposed to be a future leader of O Corporation? Matthew looked puzzled by my skeptical expression. It was at that moment that Julia spoke up. "Mr. Sullivan, it's almost time for your next meeting. We should head back." "Is it that late already?" "Well, I suppose this visit was productive enough. Thank you for your time, Matthew. Please give my regards to Miss Grant." It seemed the incident with Adam had taken up more time than I anticipated. As expected, I left O Corporation that day without meeting the representatives. On the drive back to I Corporation, I couldn't help but wonder if that man, Adam, was one of the representatives for the upcoming deal. We might need to reconsider the whole thing, but surely that couldn't be the case. No company would entrust such an important deal to someone like him. A few days later, the day of the deal finally arrived. From our side, there were 4 of us. Myself, our department head Cody, the project lead George, and my secretary Julia. From O Corporation, there were supposed to be 2 representatives, as Julia had mentioned. But when we arrived, only one representative, Eric, was present. Eric repeatedly bowed toward us, saying, "I'm terribly sorry," while trying to call the other representative. However, there was no sign of the call going through. "We should take a short break. During that time, contact your office for instructions. I have other commitments, so I can't wait here indefinitely." Leaving the meeting room, I headed toward the restroom. Then, near the restroom, I saw a familiar figure. It was Adam, the man I had clashed with during my visit to O Corporation. "Ha, what's that old man doing here?" he sneered, approaching me with a smirk. "Hey, old man, if you're here to clean, get on with it." Unbelievably, he was ordering me to clean the restroom. "What? You can't handle cleaning the restroom? Well, I don't care if your cheap suit gets dirty. Hurry up and get it done." Adam then stepped into the restroom and quickly returned, holding a toilet brush. "Here, take this," he shouted, tossing the brush at me. I narrowly avoided being hit. That's dangerous. What if it hit me and caused an injury? Injury? Like I care what happens to an old man on his last legs. Just pick it up and start cleaning, he spat, laughing as he walked away. I glared at his back, stunned by his outrageous behavior. If Adam was here at I Corporation, could it really mean he was the missing representative for today's deal? If that's the case, a sense of unease washed over me. When I returned to the meeting room, my worst fears were confirmed. Adam was indeed the second representative. "This is the worst," I muttered under my breath. Adam noticed me. He slowly stood up and approached me, grinning maliciously. Without warning, he splashed his coffee all over me. "Clean it up before you leave, you incompetent old man." The people in the room went pale at his words. Eric frantically urged Adam to apologize, but Adam simply scoffed, saying, "Why would I do that?" and looked at me with mocking disdain. At this point, I had reached my limit. "All right, the $300 million deal is off." Adam was stunned, unable to process what I had just said. "You didn't hear me? I'll say it again. The $300 million deal is canceled. Ha! What are you talking about, old man? Why does the low-level employee like you think you can cancel the deal? Only those who matter have a place here. Even now, Adam couldn't grasp the situation. Suddenly, Eric shouted, "You idiot!" at Adam. Angered by being called an idiot, Adam raised his voice, reveling in his frustration. "Who are you calling an idiot?" Then right there in the middle of an important deal, Adam and Eric began arguing. As I watched the scene unfold, wiping my head with the towel Julia had handed me, Eric suddenly turned to me and declared, "This man is Mr. Sullivan, the president of all 20 companies under the I Group." The moment those words registered, Adam froze in place. "I'm so sorry," he said, bowing deeply. All of his previous arrogance vanished in an instant. Adam pressed his forehead to the floor, bowing deeply in an over-the-top display of apology. "What about me strikes you as incompetent? Please enlighten me for future reference." "No. Well, and while we're at it, you grabbed me by the collar once before, didn't you? Care to explain what prompted that? Was it because you thought I was incompetent?" Ah. Adam could only tremble, unable to utter a word. "This is a waste of my time," I muttered. "Naturally, the deal is off, and as you can see, I can't continue working in a coffee-stained suit." I heard later that Adam remained in his humiliating bow even after I left, or rather, he was too paralyzed to stand back up. A few days after the cancellation, I received a phone call. "It's been a while, Mr. Sullivan." It was M. Grant. Originally, Miss Grant was supposed to attend the meeting herself, but due to an overseas trip, she was unable to be there. I deeply apologized for the incident the other day. It was unacceptable that I wasn't present for such an important deal and Adam's behavior. "I'm truly sorry. Your absence was understandable. An overseas trip overlapping with the deal couldn't be helped. However, choosing the right people to represent you in your absence is something that needs serious consideration." "You're absolutely right. It seems she had already been informed about the events from Eric. The future of O Corporation, you said. If you truly believe that, then I must tell you your company has no future." "That's harsh, but I understand. I don't say this lightly, but as the head of your company, you bear responsibility for Adam's behavior, and to be frank, there are other reasons why the deal was canceled." "What do you mean?" I explained everything that had transpired with Adam in detail. Miss Graham was left speechless. "I had no idea it went that far. Placing expectations on someone because they're young or assuming they'll succeed just because you hope they will is wishful thinking at best." "I'm so sorry," she said, sounding completely defeated. "Regardless, it's your responsibility to address this within your company." "Understood." After ending the call with Miss Grant, I let out a deep sigh and muttered to myself, "It's truly exhausting having to use such harsh words on someone I know." The next day, Miss Grant and Adam visited Y Corporation. In their hands was a cake from a renowned bakery, one that had recently garnered immense popularity across all age groups through TV and magazine features. "This is an apology for our misconduct. If you had the time to buy something like this, perhaps you should have avoided the misconduct in the first place. Do you even realize how crucial this deal was?" "No, that's not true," Adam protested, but his expression betrayed his ignorance of the deal's importance. "Really? Do you have any idea how much effort Miss Grant put into preparing for this deal?" Miss Grant had spent an entire year preparing for this deal to succeed. She dedicated herself to it tirelessly, almost without rest, and handled everything on her own. Then, just as the deal was approaching its final stages, an overseas trip coincided with the crucial moment. Given how much effort she had invested, she must have felt deeply frustrated. However, as a company leader, she had to set aside her personal feelings to ensure the deal's success. To that end, she entrusted the responsibility to Adam, who was regarded as one of the company's most promising talents. I didn't know that. And yet, the person she trusted turned out to be a bigger problem than she could have imagined. Adam always acted based on his own ideas, displaying arrogant and self-centered thinking. Though his actions were his own, the responsibility also lay with the company that had chosen to entrust him with such a critical role. Adam listened, stunned and unable to respond. "Your reckless, arrogant behavior has brought this upon yourself. If you had conducted yourself with basic professionalism, none of this would have happened. Reflect on that, if you even have a future to reflect on. Adam, the executive team will review your actions and decide on your punishment. Until then, you're on leave. That's the right move. And in the future, sharpen your ability to assess people." Yes. Just as I felt relieved that it was finally over, I noticed something unusual about Adam, who had been standing there in a daze. "Why me? What did I do wrong? If anyone's to blame, it's you for giving me this responsibility." "Damn it." At that moment, Adam let out a furious roar. "Ah!" He raised his right arm and swung it forcefully, aiming a punch directly at Miss Grant. "Watch out. I shouted, rushing to step between them to protect Miss Grant. But to my surprise, Adam's body was suddenly lifted into the air and slammed onto the floor with impressive force. Ouch. At that moment, I was reminded of the first time I met Miss Grant. It was 30 years ago, shortly after I had been promoted to department manager, a position I had held for less than a year. Back then, I was still adjusting to the role and was consumed by the daily demands of work. Back then, a bright and cheerful 16-year-old part-time worker named Olivia Grant joined the team. Hi, I'm Olivia. Nice to meet you. She was incredibly friendly and cheerful, quickly bonding with the other employees and part-timers. On her very first day, she was diligent in her work and, most impressively, a fast learner. Anything she was taught, she would grasp immediately and put into practice without hesitation. Even tasks that took full-time employees days to learn, she would master within the same day. Before long, everyone in the company had high expectations for her. Naturally, I was one of those people, but that was part of the problem. While she handled her work flawlessly, the mounting expectations placed on her began to take a toll. I need to do better. I have to try harder. Before long, the pressure pushed her to the brink of a breakdown. One day, the inevitable happened. While following an employee's instructions during a shift, she suddenly threw that person across the room. Thankfully, the employee only suffered a minor scratch on their arm. However, the incident shocked her so much that she collapsed on the spot, convulsing and losing consciousness. She was immediately taken to the hospital. The doctor diagnosed her with depression caused by overwork and stress. The excessive expectations placed on her, coupled with her hard-working nature and unwillingness to voice her struggles, had created a ticking time bomb within herself without even knowing it. Less than a week later, she resigned from the company. While I personally wished she could stay, the company felt it had no choice but to let her go after the incident. Among the employees, the consensus was clear. They didn't want to work with someone who had caused such a problem. Even the part-timers who had been so close to her expressed relief, saying things like, "It's good she's gone, and I'm glad she didn't come back." But I didn't share their view. I believe it was my responsibility as her manager to have noticed the signs and supported her before things reached that point. No matter how busy I had been, I should have paid more attention to her. Perhaps if I had, I could have saved her from reaching her breaking point. That regret lingered within me for years. Brings back memories, doesn't it? I'm truly sorry about back then. As your manager, I failed to see how much you were struggling. Miss Grant chuckled softly. What are you saying? Everything I am today is thanks to you, Mr. Sullivan. That's news to me. After I left the company, I was so embarrassed and overwhelmed by the judgmental stares of others that I couldn't even leave the house. I spent my days locked away while my parents grew increasingly exasperated with me. It was like living in a nightmare. But then, Mr. Sullivan, you came to my house every single day. Do you remember that? Of course I remember. I remembered every day after finishing work, I would visit her no matter how late I finished due to overtime or even on my days off. I never skipped a single visit. While part of it was concern for her, the main reason was to apologize for my responsibility in her having to leave the company. Naturally, your parents weren't very welcoming at the time. Every time I showed up, they'd tell me to leave, never come back, and even threw garbage at me once. That's true. They thought, who is this person who keeps coming every day? But my parents later admitted that they saw you as an honest and sincere person. They also told me they were genuinely happy you came, even though they were too emotional at the time to show it. I see. I'm glad to hear that. Tears unexpectedly welled up in my eyes. It was because of that time that I decided I wanted to be like you, Mr. Sullivan. From there, she shared stories I hadn't known. After leaving the company, Miss Grant joined O Corporation right after graduating high school. Her natural charisma and diligent attitude earned her high praise. Like me, she became the youngest department manager at 24. As a manager, she continued to deliver impressive results, eventually earning another promotion to director, and then at 40, become the president of O Corporation. When I became president, I made up my mind to secure a major deal with E Corporation and work alongside you, Mr. Sullivan. At that time, I was already deeply immersed in the responsibilities of leading I Corporation. So that's how it was. But for things to end up like this, I plan to reevaluate and retrain all my employees. It may take time, but I'll make sure we're ready to partner with Loy Corporation again. I'll be looking forward to it. We smiled at each other, and the atmosphere was about to be filled with a sense of calm. Just then, Adam, who had been lying on the floor where Miss Grant had thrown him, staggered to his feet, panting heavily. You've been running your mouths for too long. I don't care what happens to you anymore. I'll crush you all. But before he could act, Adam was once again hurled violently to the floor. This time, it was my secretary, Julia, who had thrown him with her usual calm demeanor. Julia looked down at Adam and said in a low, firm voice, "Enough is enough. Now that I think about it, you've trained in self-defense, haven't you? I've also studied judo. What color is your belt?" I'm a sixth-degree black belt. Upon hearing this, Adam's shoulders slumped in complete defeat. More of a bodyguard than a secretary, aren't you? A secretary I'm proud of. Thank you. Following the failed deal, Adam was held responsible and forced to resign from O Corporation. The consequences were severe. A staggering $100 million in damages arose from the canceled deal. Though it was an impossible sum for Adam to repay in his lifetime, Miss Grant insisted on pursuing the full amount. After his resignation, Adam began working tirelessly from morning to night. How many years would it take to even scratch the surface of the debt? It was hard to imagine, but Adam had no choice but to accept it all. All I could think was he brought this upon himself. The tale came full circle a year later. Mr. Sullivan, thank you for meeting with us today. The pleasure is mine. The agreement with O Corporation was successfully completed this time. Although it had been a difficult path, we will work together going forward to advance both businesses. Our goal was to establish businesses based on honesty and compassion, giving employees growth first priority and cooperating to better serve our clients. That is what I Corporation and O Corporation are working for. I was adamant that we would succeed, even if it took years.